In some respects, another has the makings for a great horror story. It has a legitimately creepy mystery, an uncomfortable atmosphere, and a dreadful style that captures the nihilist apathy the themes this show incorporates. Additionally, some of its imagery and moments of terror and dread are iconic in the genre. Yet another struggles from what every typical modern horror suffers from that lead it to more niche than unique. Koichi moves to a rural community where everyone seems to get along. In his class, he notices that everyone hazes a certain eye-patched girl named May, and everyone warns him to steer clear of nobody that's there. Ignoring these warnings, he begins to have a friendship with the girl, with the consequence of everyone ignoring both of them. However, the natural imbalance of the class, that seems to be annual, becomes disturbed, and the horrific events surrounding various classmates begin rapidly arriving, with Koichi being the traumatized bystander and Mei who may or may not know what's behind everything. On the surface, the story is good. It's a decent setup and has a mysterious, ominous presence in the way that's built and contorted. The twists are very well put together, starting with the lore of the village and its own messed up, almost psychopathic roots, and ending with Koishi's big revelation that questions his own rights and will. I also love how it does act like a horror anime, letting the uncomfortable state of the atmosphere be the real focal point of the paranoia. The look is gorgeous. Remember Evil or Live, where the cinematic feel detracts from the storytelling and distracts you more than invests you? For another, it's the complete opposite. The heavy blacks and scarlets ooze this wildly unnerving feel to the show, like you're in another world. The slow pacing and dreaded buildup of not knowing what's going to happen next helps the overall effect the show's trying to portray. Watch the opening if you want a good idea of this. But as with many horror mediums, it's the characters that drag the story down. Koichi is boring. He's an observer with the hindsight of a wooden plank. Occasionally he would say something smart or act out of fashion in a unique manner, but for the most part, he suffers from main uninteresting POV syndrome. Had it not been for the final twist, he would totally be forgettable. The rest of the class isn't too far off, lacking in the substance that would make us care for them, replaced by a conceptually cool but hollow tragedy. The only exceptions are Mei and the class rap girl Akazawa. Mei is a cool mysterious girl, emotionally broken but still alive enough to conjure fascinating perspectives into the philosophies of grief and loss. Akazawa is also an interesting character, reworking her design of mature tsundere into a descent into madness as tragedies continue on in the class under her watch to a point where she eventually becomes a monster herself. The show is also very graphic. The deaths are somewhat tame, but the absolute horror in them are in the angles and sound effects they use to capture the imagery, like the girl who falls down the steps onto the pointed end of an umbrella. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you the details, but if you watch it, don't swallow for at least like 30 seconds later. While I personally really like these scenes, I mean they really savor these moments. I won't pretend they're for everyone. Everything that makes another decent comes from the core understanding of what makes a good psychological story, but the primary issues with it are the typical tropes of horror that really gripe at people. Where it's strong, it's very strong. Where it's weak, it's unbearably weak. If you hate a 90% boring cast or bloody, gory scenes, this ain't for you. But if you're curious in the mystery and the welcome but unsettling air in the mood, as well as some brilliant cinematography, another could be a yearly Halloween watch. It's a bloody good time, if you can stomach it.